So I finally remembered to wear my weighted vest on day 4 of 75 hard because I just saw somebody walking past. I was like, oh yeah, I forgot I got that. So today I'm at Southside, which is the side of town that I grew up in Richmond, Virginia. And I am specifically in what they call Dogwood or Dogtown, but it's the Corden. it's Corden. It's Manchester, but this is the area that I'm walking in today, and I will take y'all on the tour. The area that I grew up in is called Blackwell. It's not called Blackwell too much anymore, but that is the area. That was the area's name, and it was very important to those that lived there that that name remained, and especially the name of Blackwell being named the elementary school that was across the street from where I grew up. So the area that I used to walk around is now called Manchester. But for the most part, how I knew it, it was called Blackwell. And Hull Street is about 4 or so blocks from the street that I grew up on. And it was called the Blackwell Street of the South. It was one of few that were considered the Blackwell Streets of the South. And that area has now been so blighted and forgotten, while at the same time gentrified. In a lot of ways left to its own devices and left to remain shuttered. Unless someone with money, someone with access, someone with resources were to come along and not know or fulfill the history of the space that is taking the history of the place where the building may be, but to instead create something that will bring other people who at one point did not set foot on this side of town over to this side of town now to try to make it its own. And so when we talk about transplant culture, it goes beyond you being from a completely different state. It also goes into you being from a completely different side of town and not knowing how that side of town operates. Growing up, most people on the South Side never used sidewalks. We just walk in the street. There's no real reason why. We just did it. And now to see bike lanes and these sort of things, what a lot of people don't understand when there's pushback to these things, it's not because we want things to stay the same or we want things to remain blighted, because we didn't want the blight to begin with. The blight was casted upon us. It was something that we chose. But what we typically want is for things to be revitalized, for things to be made better, while also keeping the culture. And what a lot of people that do not subscribe or understand what their thinking is, they tend to think, oh, well, you want to keep the projects, you want to keep things looking terrible, you want to keep... Most people that live in public housing, that live in Section 8 housing, that live in those spaces are not some horrible people that don't know how to live, don't know how to keep things clean, don't know how to be amongst quote-unquote polite society and have some sense about themselves. Those are some of the cleanest, most well-kept homes on the inside that you can imagine. Their job is not to keep the outside clean. That is what the city, the county, the state, local government is supposed to do. But it's intentionally made to look ran through and look horrible for the reason to be able to see they can't even keep their homes together. Meanwhile, it's immaculate on the inside. You will never know because you've already made your mind up about these individual people, these individual families, based off of what somebody else told you should look out for. Meanwhile, a lot of the apartments that are being built right now, a lot of the condos and luxury apartments have the same shit from the 80s that have not done any. There are roaches that have been painted over, but they're charging $3,000 for it. It's all of it is not the same. The buckets and the contents that go inside the buckets are not the same, but the reality and the belief systems tend to run very parallel. And there's a lot of more people that believe the worst than see the best. So instead of getting to know the culture and getting to know the people that created and have survived these areas, and also what having a city forget you, having a local government forget you or put you off to the side, instead of honoring that history, it's literally and figuratively demolished. It is handed over to somebody else that has money and access to quote unquote make this thing better for people who in a lot of ways feel like they're better off not knowing the history of this, because then they wouldn't have to think about it. They wouldn't have to see the people that they were told to stay away from. I am not from Jackson Ward. I am not from Churchill, but growing up, and especially in high school, I had friends that lived in both of those areas. And it was at one point where you could not drive through there without somebody stopping you and asking you where you're from. And if you said the wrong side of town, it could be a little high for you in that moment. But now we're seeing people walking their dogs and pushing baby carriages with no history, no understanding of what happened there, and they're so divorced from the experience of being in that space and growing up in that space, and then on top of that, to be pushed out of that space and told that you don't belong there. Your kind, your tax bracket, your income does not belong there. You built the space. Yeah, those spaces may have been created as public housing, as low-income housing, for people to be stuffed into there so they can be taken away from certain spaces in the city, while other people were escaping to the counties. You were stuffed into those spaces and told to make do. And you made do with it. And you made something remarkable. You made something beautiful. And then more and more resources are taken away from that space, as was intended. So much so that you can't even exist there anymore safely. All for it to be taken over by people who 2-3 generations prior told you don't belong there. Funny that.